being really present to each moment, which is very challenging for me as someone. I like to say that I have a PhD also in worry. So anxiety comes naturally for me. It's part of my family upbringing. It's in my genes. And so, I've been on this very long journey of mindfulness, contemplation, moving toward present moment awareness. So I think first and foremost, it's presence. It's presence to myself. It's presence to the people I'm privileged to be with each day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Reflections on Living Well podcast, where we explore perspectives on the good life in the 21st century. I am your host, Broderick Rodell. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Reflections on Living Well podcast. Today, our guest is Amy Eva. Amy is the Associate Education Director at the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley. As an educational psychologist and teacher educator with over 30 years in classrooms, she currently writes, presents, and leads online courses focused on student and educator well-being, mindfulness, and courage. In addition, she is one of the key developers of the website Greater Good in Education, which features over 400 free research-based practices for creating kinder, happier schools where everyone belongs. Over the past several years, she has co-facilitated statewide social and emotional learning communities of practice for California educators and administrators. And her recently published book, Surviving Teacher Burnout, a weekly guide to build resilience, deal with emotional exhaustion, and stay inspired in the classroom, features 52 simple, low-lift strategies for enhancing educational professional social and emotional well-being. Hi, Amy.
Hi, my friend. What a pleasure to be talking to you today.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited. Now, everyone, Amy and I are friends. We'll keep it, somewhat professional. No, I'm joking. We're going to talk just like we talk on a regular basis. That's the thing I like about podcasting, that we can be natural. I think when we have a natural conversation, a natural flow, there seems to be a little bit more depth comes out of the conversation.
Yeah.
So, let's have fun with this conversation today. Amy is just a wonderful person. I've worked with Amy and I love her to pieces, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you here on the
Me
podcast.
too. Me
Mm.
too. We've talked about being like siblings to each other's, and that makes me happy. And we know each other because we've facilitated communities of practice together
Exactly.
for education professionals around the world, and that has
Hmm.
been such a pleasure doing that work with you.
Yeah, you too. Folks have probably heard me say this here on the podcast, and I definitely say it outside of podcasting, is my admiration and love for educators and um, and I admire people who work with educators and the importance of doing that. One of the most important professions, I think, in the world, period, is being an educator, because an educator facilitates learning for human beings, facilitates, hopefully, ideally, the
Mhm.
development of human beings. And that's the most important profession, I think, in the world, is to facilitate human development through education.
Agreed.
So yeah, so we're on in there. Maybe that'll come up. I wonder if
I
that'll
think
come up
it's
in
going
this
to come up.
conversation. I wonder if that has anything to do with the good life. But I know I just read that bio, and I know I just held you up, but I still would like for you to introduce yourself in any way that feels good, that resonates.
Yeah. Um, I am a mom of three young adults, blended family. I'm a stepmom and a mom. I am a partner, wife, daughter. Um, I am a writer. I love to write, and I am most of all a teacher. I think I identify most as being a teacher professionally, even though I don't teach all the time. It's what makes me feel alive, and I love holding space with you and, in other contexts, holding space for teachers, educators to really connect with themselves and each other. That is like the most beautiful work. Yeah, I've been an educator for 30 years. I started off teaching language arts in high school and college writing, and then I ended up becoming a teacher educator. My degree is in educational psychology, and I was a teacher educator for 12 years, got tenure, and then left. Which actually was the best decision of my professional life because now I work for the Greater Good Science Center, and you've worked with us too, Broderick. And it's the best job in the world because we look at the psychology, the sociology, neuroscience research, and we translate it into practices, articles. We have a podcast, and our mission, our goal is to facilitate and nurture a more thriving, resilient, and compassionate society. So, I mean, for me, that's the best job I could possibly have.
Love it. What a way to do it, right? Supporting educators. And
Yeah. And we're bigger than that. We don't just support educators, but we have
mm,
a team within Greater Good Science Center that you know well, Broderick, that is just specifically focused on K-12 educators and higher ed folks. But Greater Good supports
mm,
all people of all paths. So yeah.
love it. Love it. So go check out the Greater Good, folks.
Yeah.
There is lots of content there that's available to the public. So
And
it's
freely,
and
which we love.
free.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So to start off here, I want to say so much more about what you just said, but let's go into
Oh
the
yeah.
question on the podcast is
Okay.
what does living well mean to you? What is a good life? What makes life worth living? So I use those questions interchangeably. I know that
Mm-hmm.
they're slightly different, but I think I want to pose those three and see what sparks in your mind as you reflect on that.
I I love the privilege of actually being able to think about this with you because I think about it broadly in my work, but I don't always come back to thinking about it personally right now for me. So thank
Mm-hmm.
you. I think living well for me is being really present to each moment, which is very challenging for me as someone. I like to say that I have a PhD also in worry. So anxiety comes naturally for me. It's part of my family upbringing. It's in my genes. And so, I've been on this very long journey of mindfulness, contemplation, moving toward present moment awareness. So I think first and foremost, it's presence. It's presence to myself. It's presence to the people I'm privileged to be with each day. It's holding space for them and me. It's love. You and I talk about love a lot. It's feeling a sense of connection and community. Um, I'm a fairly introverted person. You wouldn't know it because as a teacher, I'm all most of the time, but I'm fairly introverted and often fairly lonely and in solitude. And so connection, feeling connected to something larger than myself, feeling connected to others is the most beautiful part of life. Um, Having a beyond the self purpose for me is living well. So having a job like I do, and I'm very privileged to have the kind of job that I do. I get to kind of lean into that every day, lean into the keys to well-being, which we may talk about later, to virtues and values, which we may talk about. And I think another thing that's really important to me in living well is authenticity and honesty and bringing as much of myself and my vulnerability into conversations and into everyday life. Um, Maybe that's part of the reason that I steered a little bit away from traditional academia, even though I still work at UC Berkeley. It's like performative ivory tower behaviors are challenging for me, and I fall into them. I'm but I want to be real. I just want to be human. I just want to be
Mm.
in the moment with you, with whoever I come across.
Mm. Beautiful.
I will add, I think in my 50s now, as someone who has always been very much a good girl, um, I'm leaning into play and fun and creativity. It's really challenging for me because I'm such a good girl, responsible person, but like really like trying to tap into play, be with animals, be with little ones, all of those things that bring joy as well. That's definitely living well for me
Hmm.
too.
Love it. Love it. All right. There's a lot there to unpack. I'm loving it.
Okay.
Um, yeah, all of those things. You started off with, I guess I'll frame it as peace of mind, having a
Mm,
sense of peace, as in mindfulness, being in the present moment, I
present,
suppose.
yeah.
Being present, I guess I translate as peace. But being present, and why that first? Or is that what came to mind, or is there a reason that you said that first? I'm just curious.
What a fun, interesting question. It's funny. I did say presence, and I actually did mean peace. You know me. I mean, it is presence to access peace.
Mm-hmm.
I have a, a very busy mind. I am, kind of a crazy monkey brain. And those moments in my day where I take a deep breath, where I savor, the warmth of the teacup in my hand, where I have an interaction I wasn't expecting with strangers, where I can just be and not be in my neurotic mind. That's home, that's peace, that's happiness for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sometimes difficult to access, but if I lean into it a little bit each day, it's there. Supposedly all of us, our minds are wandering at least 46% of the time. I can't remember the researchers who study that at this moment, but that's a lot of time to kind of not be connected to
Mm-hmm.
self and world. So, yeah. Presence means peace, it means calm, it means connection to something higher than myself, I think.
Mm-hmm. I feel you, Amy. I mean, I asked that question because I want to see there's a slight, we all have a slight hierarchy of importance, of
Mm,
values in terms of living a good life or living well. And I personally think that presence, cultivating that present moment awareness and settling the mind is foundational for all
yeah.
other things that you mentioned. And in order for us to love deeply when we're present, when we're engaged with the world and with ourselves, we can love a little bit more, I think. We can be a little bit more authentic. We can connect a little bit more with people and community. And, when you said that you're, when you're really present, it puts you in connection with something greater than yourself. You
Hmm.
know, that's a necessity in terms of doing something, involving yourself in an action or activities that connects you to something greater than yourself. So I think it's quite profound saying that in the beginning,
Mm,
how and why important, how important that is. It's not the only thing, as you mentioned, but it's so foundational to the good life and the many other facets of what makes life worth living. I think that there's a lot of value in being present in the present moment and the various things or qualities that comes with that, like stillness and peace. Yeah.
I'm looking at you and I'm thinking about how much you embody that for me and how much deep listening is a part of presence. Um, you are such a good listener, and you have these soft form eyes that just comfort me. I love it. And I think you and I, when we were facilitating groups together, we oversaw this community of practice at Greater Good called Bridging for Belonging. And we did a lot of really deep listening.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the most beautiful aspects of presence played out in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we can sit and hold space for one another, um, as we are each working through our respective challenges, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. I have to say to you also that I go to I have alcoholism in my family, and I go to Al-Anon regularly, which is one of the most beautiful practices of grace, I think, that people can sit with one another, and you get the floor for your 5 minutes or your 3 minutes, and everyone holds that space for you, and there's no crosstalk and there's no interruption, and you get the agency and you're allowed honored to have the agency and the dignity to work through your own thing out loud in the presence of others who are struggling just as much as you are. That kind of listening to one another is pretty rare.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, for me, it's kind of my church these days.
Mm-hmm.
um, I grew up, Roger, do you know this about me? I am a granddaughter and daughter and ex-wife of ministers.
Hmm. I didn't know that.
Hmm. And one sort of headline for me in my life is that I have been on a very long journey of trying to navigate what it means to be religious versus what it means to be spiritual. Um, I'm on a journey to find a more expansive spirituality than the one that I grew up with. And I respect and honor and love my dad and his Christianity. The way I received it wasn't healthy for me. And so I see contexts where sitting with one another and holding space with one another like we are right now, and um, like I experienced in Al-Anon, those are church for me. Those are the beautiful moments of connection that
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes didn't feel in a church pew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm. I feel you. I think again, starting with that presence and being really present, sitting in that in a place of peace, even if it's only for a few moments, does and can facilitate deep listening.
Hmm.
And especially when we have another person in front of us. Now, you know, I can talk too now. I probably can talk too much. I think I get on my little, I get on my, I guess maybe a hobby horse. I don't. That's not necessarily the right word, but I process out loud, and I can go
Hmm.
on my little rant, thinking out loud. But you're right, though. Really listening, really sitting still and being really present with myself and with another person, and how that facilitates deep connection.
Hmm.
Um, and when I'm resting in presence, a sense of stillness and calm and ease, it allows me to listen a little deeply, a little more deeply to the other person, and listening to myself. Because when we're listening to someone, the mind is doing its thing, like you say, it's just constantly doing something.
Hmm.
But being able to, it's like a meditative practice to me. Various meditation practices, particularly ones that centered around concentration. In the beginning, most meditative schools, they start with some type of concentration practice, and where you're focusing your attention on something. There's an object of your attention that you're focused on. And those of us who practice meditation, particularly in the beginning, it's almost impossible to stay focused on anything for a second.
Sure.
And so when we're listening to someone, and especially when we're being really present, it's like a meditative practice. When the mind goes off thinking about something, like, oh, let me focus on this, being present with this person. Let me listen deeply. It becomes a practice in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process of doing that, we can get that deep connection that you're speaking of, that non-superficial connection. Because when you're really sitting silently and present with someone, now it's okay to be yeah, yeah, that's part of silence to me. It means you're really engaging with the person that you're listening to. Um, but when we really do that and we're in connection with another person, and then if there are other persons around, to me, I'm also with you. It is like church.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm in a community of people who are really locked in with each other, and we're anchored by, maybe it's just listening to each other's voice. Maybe we're singing together, or maybe we're listening to someone, focusing our attention on someone giving a lecture or a sermon or whatever. I don't. It doesn't even matter. Um, all of that is a part of being in community and connecting with people. But I think it goes back to that thing you said in the beginning of being really present with ourselves, and how that can open up the world for us to have all kinds of experiences that are quite wonderful.
And here's the kicker. It's so easy to do this right now with you. I know you, I love you, we've worked together. Um, but when so many of us these days are in conflict,
Mm-hmm.
how do we hold space for each other when we're charged up with, a different viewpoint or emotion, a strong emotion of anger? I mean, how do we do that? And that's what you and I were working on with people and with ourselves in those COPs, is like, how do we hold ourselves calmly in a moment when we disagree? It's
Mm-hmm.
it's the biggest challenge of all, and yeah, sitting with anger,
Mm-hmm.
sitting with frustration, and asking someone to tell them more about
Mm-hmm.
what they think and believe.
Mm-hmm. I'm
Yeah.
so I'm so glad you brought that up,
Hmm.
because again, this is why I'm so happy you brought up presence in the beginning. And first of all, it's hard to do to be really
Oh.
present and engaged with yourself. It takes practice. Again, it's what a
Hmm.
lot of the contemplative practices do. That stuff is foundational. But the benefit of it is when we are in situations, are in dialogue, or interacting with someone. How do I be present with someone I disagree with,
Hmm.
that I may not like for whatever
Right.
reason?
Right.
How do I even be present with my own discomfort with not liking someone? And how do I be present with the anxiety that comes up when I make assumptions about someone because they see the world differently than I do?
Hmm.
How do I deal with someone that views that I think are harmful, and also objectively harmful to the environment and to others, and to themselves? How do I sit and listen to all that? How do I be present to all of that? You have to really cultivate this capacity to be in a space of stillness in oneself. That requires a lot of practice. So I'm glad you brought that up. It is difficult because I don't want folks to think that a lot of what we're saying, like, oh, it's just so simple.
Yeah, really.
No, no, it's not. And I know listeners hear me say this all the time, that it's not easy, because I really want to reiterate that it's not. But that doesn't mean you don't try. That doesn't mean you don't put forth the effort,
Hmm.
to be really present, to be present with oneself, to listen deeply to oneself, to not be attached to one's own thinking on ideas, to not be so, uh, what's the word? Not to be careful about the type of aversion that we have to something as well.
Hmm.
And so we don't have to. How do we just be present with what is, no matter what it is that is coming up for us? It's really difficult to do. But when we do that, the power in that we get to see things as they are. And if we see things as they are, and if we listen deeply and really present, then we can, I think it opens up the possibility of better sense making. We can make sense out of our experience a little bit with a little bit more clarity because we gain a little distance by observing and witnessing something from that place of presence. So we get to see it clearly or more clearly. And I can attest to this. Over time, we're doing this practice more and more and more. You do get to see things a little more clear when you can detach yourself away from it. Does that make sense? Am I just?
Yeah, as you were describing that too, I was thinking about my mind went to how easy it is. I don't know if you relate to this, but how easy it is for me as a facilitator, as a teacher who loves doing what she does, to hold space for others and be present to them. And it's so much harder for me to be present to my own complicated emotions
Mm-hmm,
without judgment.
mm-hmm,
I mean, I've been on a journey. I'll just be honest with you. I've been on a grief journey for quite a while. And as I even listen to my tone in saying that to you, I hear my judgment of myself. Like, why have I been so sad for so long? And I was thinking this morning that um, I have shame about that. I have shame about
mm-hmm,
my sadness. And and my sadness is for a number of reasons, and maybe I think that they're not good enough. There's a part of me that thinks that they're not good enough. I've been an empty nester for a few years now, and my daughter's a junior in college, and I'm still sad. Like, she's about to leave Saturday, again for the summer. And that has been a massive, I don't know if other folks who listen to you can relate, a massive sadness in me, because
mm-hmm.
so much of my identity has been focused on that relationship. Even though I'm quite the career woman, I'm that mom identity, man. Whew. I've been sad because I lost a best friend to cancer, but that was a number of years ago too. I've been sad about the world, the state of the world. And Roderick, I've tried really hard to kind of lean in, to lean in and just be with it. Um, and I think I want myself to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just, even though I teach about emotions, I literally teach the science of emotions to teachers, and about discomfort resilience, and about how to be with one's emotions non-judgmentally. I'm really in my 50s coming to terms with that in myself in ways I haven't before. Like, how do I be present and non-judgmental, and how do I just really like nurture that little girl in me who is sad.
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but it's hard to
Mm-hmm.
be present to really unpleasant emotions in oneself.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up all of that. So
Okay.
you're teaching about it. Just
Yeah.
to reiterate to folks, it's still a challenge.
Hmm.
Um, and that's why the practice always continues.
Yep.
It's not about being enlightened and all of that kind of stuff. It's I mean, you can, you know, be on the path of enlightenment. That's fine. I think we are if you engage in any type of contemplative practice, any type of practice that facilitates getting better as a person. That's the path, but don't worry about the end so much.
Hmm.
And the important thing is to focus on getting better at doing what you're saying.
Hmm.
Getting so when I was talking about getting in distance from, now it's going to sound weird to folks who don't engage in these types of practices. When I'm talking about having distance away from my emotions, that
Mm.
actually means leaning into it.
Mm.
What I mean by that is as you lean into something and you really sit with it, you lean into it from a non-attached space. You're
Mhm.
really present with what is, but also detached away from it. And therefore, you can actually sit with it and see it for what it is. But when we are attached to something and we think that we're really present with it, but we're really captured by it. We may be somewhat present, but we're captured by it and we're clinging to it.
Mhm.
Um, and the reverse of that clinging is aversion. There's a when we averse to something, we're clinging to the alternative. So it's still some form of clinging that's there that holds us. And I think all of us go through that because that's what makes it difficult to sit with ourselves non-judgmentally. We're going to make judgments on ourselves because of our various clinging or attachments to various emotions or narratives that we're telling ourselves. That is
Yeah,
a lifelong process of quote unquote detaching ourselves and being just sitting in that seat of the witness is one way of talking about it. The
exactly.
sitting of the seat of the observer, the observer and the witness, they're really present. It is really present.
Mm.
It's just presence itself, aware of what is arising moment to moment. But oftentimes we're clinging to those things that are arising, or we want to push certain things away that is arising, and we start judging ourselves, and then that just leads into this cycle of distancing ourselves from our core, the core witness space that we can allow ourselves to get into. That's hard. That takes a significant amount of practice. And so, how do we now, knowing, having that awareness that it's challenging, we don't give up, we keep practicing, then we
Mhm.
can be like, okay, then I'm going to judge myself sometimes. I'm going to be criticizing. I'm going to have this voice in my mind saying that I should have moved on from this or I should be better at this. And
Mhm.
like me, I'm constantly, I know I talk too much sometimes, but I have a lot of judgment around it. Like, why do I go on that? I can just talk to myself or something, talk to a wall if you want to rant about something, but I have this judgment, this
Sure.
consistent judgment. I have the consistent judgment about feeling like I can't articulate myself as clearly as I would like to. And then when I start going on that path, it happens on this podcast sometimes.
Mhm.
Then I can't say anything, or I feel like I've lost all my words now because I'm just in my mind. I'm judging myself. I'm trying to listen to the other person. I'm listening to my own self, and then I have these judgments going through my mind. It's a
Mhm.
process, fam, and it
Mhm.
doesn't. And for me, and I wonder if this resonates with you. It's still a good life.
Oh,
It's still a
absolutely.
good life, even though I'm
Yeah,
going through that. You're going through
sure.
your thing. It's so
Mhm.
good life doesn't mean it is always pleasurable all the time.
I'm so there with you on that. I think another thing that I am really leaning into in this decade of my life is just the the acceptance of suffering, the acceptance of the range of experience that every day will be, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um I absolutely resonate with that. I was reading, do you know Mark Nepo?
Yeah, yeah. I haven't
I
read
was
his
reading
books,
him
but
right
yeah.
before our podcast, and when you were talking about your mind, I thought of this quote that I just wrote down from him this morning. Sometimes the skin of mind is torn and we are no longer separate beings. And
Mm.
you were talking about the self judgments during the podcast, which I do too. And I have done during this podcast. Like, will I be articulate? Will I, be thoughtful? The skin of the mind is torn. That like thinking cycle is torn. And then we are no longer separate beings. It resonated with that little moment you were describing about
Mm-hmm.
being disconnected because you're in your mind judging
Mm-hmm.
yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then
Um,
we have those moments of connection.
oh, and
Or,
then we're back.
yeah,
And it's a
and
dance, right? Like it's
mm-hmm.
such a dance. I think life for me is all about balance, and I think dancing, even though I'm not a dancer and I want to be a dancer, I just took a swing dancing class with my husband. um, but life for me is really about like how do you move with the flow of the moment and not try
Mm-hmm.
to control it and just let it be.
Mm-hmm.
And all of our fears, of course, make us want to cling and control and make everything feel okay. But we have it's a flow, it's a dance, it's a listening.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
love it. There are crests and there's troughs in this life. There's ups
Oh,
and
for sure.
downs, and I think you're right. As I've gotten older, theoretically I understood this before, but just it's nothing like life experience. But as I've gotten older, I'm like, yeah, it's not, I can't beat it all. There's always going to be some down moments. There are going to be up moments. How do I not get too excited in the up moments? How do I not get so down in the down moments? And just ride the wave. It's a dance, you're saying. And I think every moment of our lives is an opportunity to learn. All these challenges, we're learning something. We're expanding our capacity to deal with situation if we are really present. That's what's possible. There's this. I think this process of evolution is continuous, and that if we adapt ourselves to the various challenges, even as we overcome those challenges, we are better suited for the next challenge that maybe have some similar qualities as the previous challenge did. And that's the beauty of this. To me, that makes life worth living. Is
Totally.
going through the process. It doesn't mean that it all ends. No, it's the dance itself. It's like, oh, there are going to be some down moments. There are going to be some up moments. Okay, then how do I swing with it? How do I dance with it? How do I flow with life the best way I can? And how do I mitigate the unnecessary suffering in my life?
Mm-hmm.
There are aspects of it that are just unnecessary. And how do I mitigate that? By making choices in my life that are conducive to greater amount of well-being, and knowing that even in that process, I'm going to have moments where I don't feel good. I'm going to have moments where I don't sleep well. I'm going to have
Mm-hmm.
moments when I'm pissed off at my family for some reason. I'm going to have moments where I'm in love with my family, like they're the greatest things in the world. And there are going to be moments where somebody disappoints me, or there's going to be moments when I disappoint myself. That's just grist for the mill, right? That just kind of comes with life, being a human being.
Mm.
Now, how do we navigate that? It's beautiful.
I don't think I think another thing about living well for me that I didn't mention that is so at the heart of Amy is what you're saying. That is for me lifelong learning, that I can learn
Mm-hmm.
something new every day of my life, not academically necessarily, very maybe something very intrapersonal or interpersonal, but that I can find new meaning every day, and new insight. I mean, and curiosity too. That's one thing I study at Greater Good Science Center. What a joyful thing to like be a curious human being and lean
Mm-hmm.
into that.
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, the capacity to learn and grow. I mean, what would life be if we didn't have that? How
Mm-hmm.
sad, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, right? That's it, man. I'm like, it's so beautiful. There's this analogy is that, again, this is a metaphor, fam. There's this metaphor that people use sometimes, which I like, because different metaphors, you can play with different metaphors as long as you're not too clinging to any of them. But this one about, we're all God is through us are the divine. If you don't like the word God, is we're on. It's dancing through us. Is here to learn something about itself through each and every one of us. And I think
Mm.
spirit is like gaining some type of learning through us, through our experiences. Like that's a beautiful way to look at it, and it's a way of like, oh, I'm an expression of that which is, you can call it divine, call it God, or whatever you want. And it's expressing itself through its will through each of us.
Hmm.
And in the expression across time, there's learning that is taking place, or there's this possibility of learning that is taking place. And having that awareness, I using that metaphor, I'm like, oh, well, what if I do my best as a agent, a conscious agent, um, to learn as much as I can about what it means to be alive as a human being,
Mm.
and for me to care for others with that realization that, oh, each one of us is an expression of the divine, and how do I learn as much as I can how to be with the divine in the form of someone else, or
Mm.
something else. That requires a certain amount of learning and curiosity. And I think you brought up that curiosity, and I think curiosity is the gateway to presence.
I agree.
Because when you're
It can be.
really, it can be, yeah. And when you're
Hmm.
really curious about something, about yourself, you have to attend to it.
Hmm.
You have to be present with it. I'm curious about right now, and it's such a trick. I'm curious about what is happening and what's flowing in my life moment to moment.
Hmm.
That being curious can facilitate being really present. And
Absolutely.
then,
And it can facilitate joy.
yeah.
Todd Kashdan, the researcher, he studies different types of curiosity. And I've written about some of his work, but one of the types of curiosity that he's identified through, surveys and scales is joyful exploration.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I love talking about curiosity and thinking about curiosity. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think of other inspirations. I had this random this is so out of the blue, but 2 days ago I had a difficult situation with one of my kids, and I took the day off work and I supported that child. And I had taken the day off work. I had let everyone know I'm not working, and I was waiting for my child or my young adult at a cafe, and I thought, oh, I'm going to start working now. I'm going to be on my laptop and address all these emails. But there were these two little boys and their mom, 7 and 4, Charlie and Henry. And it's still like the best um, experience of my week, Broderick. I decided to put my laptop away. I had like 30, 40 minutes. I invited the mom and the two sons over to my table, which had shade. It's very hot in Seattle right now. And I had this like 30-minute conversation with 7-year-old Charlie and 4-year-old Henry. And it was the best, most joyful thing this week, just to sit with these two boys and their mom as she kind of watched and talk to them about their lives and about how they were in this Frozen performance, and one of them was Sven, and one of them was the Nice Prince, and just these moments with these little boys who were so joyful and so real and so authentic. And by the time they left, they kept looking back, going, "Bye, Amy. Bye,
All
Amy." Bye.
right.
We just had this great connection, and I'm just bubbly thinking about it because there are these moments with strangers that we can stumble into, even when we're having a really difficult day. And in this
Mm-hmm.
situation, my child was suffering deeply, um, and they can bring us such joy just having these real, simple connections with people.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Right. That curiosity. So I'm
Oh,
glad you brought up that. That example is a perfect segue into what I was gonna um, bring to you next. Is this idea of being present and curiosity. I'm so glad curiosity came into this and being open, receptive, even when things are challenging, the ups and downs of
mm-hmm.
life. Even in, like you said, in one day you're here to meet with one of your children, and there's this challenging. You have one child or two? I'm
I have three. I
three,
have a
three. I'm
30
sorry.
year
Yeah,
old,
yeah,
a
three. I
25
want.
year old, and a 21-year old. Two
Okay,
stepkids and one. The youngest is my daughter. Yeah.
okay. All right. I want to make sure I was clear about that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So during that day, you had again the ups and downs in one day, and then this really wonderful moment, connection with these youth. So you say something about how does that relate to love? This concept of love.
I the first thing that pops into my head is an there was an openness in me in that moment to invite connection and bring and invite these kids over with there's an openness to learning, to connecting, to how does it relate to love? Hmm. there was a letting go of control in that moment when I thought that I should be working and I should be doing the things,
Mm-hmm.
where I just kind of had, I like the expression, a strong back and a soft front, and just said, hey, come on over. And, instead
Mm-hmm.
of utilizing that time wisely to accomplish the tasks needed, I just communed with these two lovely boys who had cute painted fingernails and sloppy mouths with egg salad all over them. And it was just, I don't know, it was just an openness to being present, to asking them questions. Is that maybe
Mm-hmm.
what you're asking?
No, no, just curious because I
Thinking about
think,
love here. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, so say, can you say something about what love means to you?
Whew. Okay. Well, I'm not sure that this is a definition of love, but I automatically went to this moment as you asked me. I grew up, as I said, with um, a very high level sort of minister in a Protestant religion, grandfather and father. And I grew up with ministers. Like, I was around them all the time. My grandfather was somewhat, love you, Grandpa, somewhat authoritarian, and strict and loving. And my father, a little looser. but um, when my grandpa died, I was in my early 20s. He I had a dream about him right after he died, and it was one of those dreams where there was light behind him and he came toward me, and maybe I constructed all of this, but he came toward me and he said to me, Amy, I want you to tell your dad I had it all wrong. It's all about love.
Mm.
And by had it all wrong, I think he meant like my leaning into religiosity and dogma and the way that everything and everyone should be was wrong, that it's really so much simpler than all that, that it's all about love.
Mm-hmm.
And I carry that with me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that all the complex theological discussions that I witnessed and was part of growing up, and all the religiosity that is beautiful, um, but complicated, at least in my world growing up, it's so much simpler. It's all about that dance of love and
Mm-hmm.
looking up. I had another dream where he told me, Amy, you're always looking down, cogitating. He's like, you need to look up. Um, so I think a lot about love and looking up when I think about my grandfather and how if he were to live another life, that he might come back and be a little bit looser and be a little bit more open to moments of love, knowing that maybe finally that he was loved.
Mm.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah, totally.
yeah.
Right, it's about love, right? No matter what it is that we're doing, us having this conversation, for me at least, um, all the meditative practices, all the exercises that I do, mind, body, to facilitate well being in myself, all for the sake of love.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess where I was asking that question, I guess, I, I, I see love. One way of looking at love is deep connection,
Mm-hmm.
open hearted connection
Right.
to uh, having a deep resonance in that connection.
I
That's
see that in
again,
you.
that's
Yeah.
curious. And to me, that's what love, that's one way of talking about love. Now, again, those who listen to this regularly, me, I'm constantly saying that language is limited. We can give all of that's why everything is somewhat of a metaphor and shouldn't be taken too serious, any word anyway. Because
Mm-hmm.
we're really trying to point at an experience, and love is an experience. And what I know to be true about those experiences of love is this profound, deep connection and resonance with something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and When we have that, there's a sense of peace. There's a
Yeah.
presence associated with it. So I was trying to tie all those pieces together, and because you mentioned that in your, that
You are.
love is important, part of
Mhm.
what a good life is for you, and it's tied to all those things that you mentioned. I mean, doing curiosity later, and being really present, and then the various qualities associated with presence and connection. All of those things are related to love in some capacity. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely, and very much connected to presence. We're kind of back where we started. I do think too, Broderick, that for me, love is very much about acceptance.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I am learning to lean into accepting some of the parts of me that I've struggled with, and also some of the parts of my family members, particularly. Like, can I get to the place where I really fully accept in them things that have been hard for me to forgive?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and let it be. Just let it be. Let it all
Mm-hmm.
be.
Yeah. Well,
Let it go.
let it go.
So love, I think, is acceptance for me today and lately.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you brought up acceptance because that's tied to presence. That's tied
Yes,
to not
exactly.
clinging, to not being attached, to
Yeah.
not being so averse to things. Is when we just accept things as they are. Then I can rest in presence when I'm just accepting. And then I can really, it doesn't mean I have to like everything that's happening. That's very
Right.
different. When we accept stuff, things as they are, we can lean into it much more effectively, and then we can interact with that thing. Be accepting some dark thoughts in our minds. We can
Mm-hmm.
relate to them much better when just like, you know what, dark thoughts are flying through my mind. It's just the dark thoughts. And when we're able to just accept that they're just there, because if we try to fight them and we're keeping it, get stronger and stronger when we're fighting with ourselves or we're fighting with others, you just gotta accept. You gotta accept. Doesn't mean you agree. I don't like when dark thoughts come through my mind. I'm like, okay, I don't know where that's coming from. That's interesting.
Mm.
But I don't have to go and cling with it either,
Mm-hmm.
cling onto it either. And so, but I don't have to resist it either. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
matter of being present and allow it to pass. It comes and it goes. Um, and when we have that level of acceptance, you bring up a good analogy. I have challenges with certain people in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and their behaviors and their actions, but I still love them. My dad, I have issues.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love the man. He's had his challenges, the things that he's gone through that has led him down the path that he's on. And, again, I'm not going to try to excuse maladaptive behavior. I think I've said that before in this podcast, but I can still love him. But it
Mhm.
requires me to just accept. I'm like, okay, this is how he is. For years, I'm like, oh, please change, quit doing it. I
Yes.
don't like that you do that. And blah 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 blah. And then I would interact with him, and I'm all frustrated, and there's a barrier there. Not to say I don't get frustrated anymore when I see him. It's just that I can just relax and soften around all that and just accept that this is how he is. This is where he is in his life. He's 76 years old. It's okay.
Mhm.
And just love him for who he is and where he is in his life. And that requires this acceptance. And just allow myself to connect with this older gentleman that's on his way out. Let me just connect and be present with this person and love them. They
I
don't
love
have to
that.
be as I want them to be. Again, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying I don't have moments where I'm like, oh, I wish you would change. It's like it's not going to change right now, not at this point.
Yes.
Just accept and love them. That's all you can do. And that's
Yeah.
such a beautiful way to exist. And when we do that, just check in and see what that feels like in our own bodies. And like, oh, it feels great. I'm sad. I'm sad, but I feel that sadness is cradled in love, and it's like, okay, so this is what it is, and I can't make it any other way, and I can let me sit with this sadness that I'm experiencing about this situation, but knowing that it's cradled and I'm cared for in a loving space, or I'm held by presence, a presence
Beautiful.
that is so beautiful that it's indescribable. This presence when we have that in those moments with ourselves, it's like, okay, how do I work with that in life? To me, that's a good life. It doesn't mean that everything is lovely. That would be lovely if everything was lovely all the time. Oh, that would be great. But that's just not how. That's not the cards we were dealt as human beings. So,
Have you heard of internal family systems?
oh yeah, I love it.
That to me has been my greatest pathway in the last few years toward love and acceptance, is
Mm-hmm.
that notion that I'm not just one thing. I am I actually literally in my mind have a conference table, and my
Mm-hmm.
capital S self is at the head, my wiser self.
Mm-hmm.
And there are all these players that have been part of me for all these many years. There's that little girl at the end of the table who's 7 and really quiet and doesn't know how to speak up for herself and wants something more. And there are all of her protectors who drive her forward and want her to succeed. And that, speaking of curiosity, the capacity for us to be able to be compassionate about each of these parts of ourselves and curious about why the parts of ourselves that are undesirable to maybe us, why they're there and what that they have our best interests at heart too. And
Mm-hmm.
just to engage with all of that. Richard Schwartz is the man who
Mm-hmm.
studied internal family systems and has written a book called No Bad Parts. And that has helped me so much with myself, but also with people in my family who I've really struggled with. And when I'm very challenged, I often think about my parents, for example, little child.
Mm-hmm.
Like the part of my dad that is 7 years old and was constrained and was held down and not allowed to be
Mm-hmm.
him, you know. That helps me to be more compassionate. That helps me to accept both those that I'm frustrated with and the parts of myself I don't want to accept, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great stuff. And I know we're coming to an end here. But there's several things I want to come back to that you brought up. Well, I'll just ask this question: is it the love that drives you to do this type of service work that you do? Because you mentioned about doing meaningful work or doing work that's
Yeah.
not just that's beyond yourself, that's
Oh, yeah.
connected to something greater than yourself. Is that what is it that drives you to do that, and why is that
Um,
important?
I have you kind of captured it at the beginning. Your passion for education is similar to mine. I have such a strong passion to work on behalf of education professionals. I care deeply for students, but my number one passion is to be with and support the well-being of the adults who um, give their hearts and souls to the work of supporting children. And I am, I think the underlying belief or value that drives me, which is very much connected to love, is that I truly do believe that every human has deeply inherent worth and dignity.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what I live to support and honor. As fallible as I am, I want to hold spaces and love and honor people in the world who are doing this work to support children. I can't imagine living a life without a beyond the self purpose. I just can't. Um, and I'm not going to assume that I can make a big mark on teachers' lives, but if I can in some way support teachers to feel a stronger sense of social and emotional well-being, my book is all about that. I would have called it Teaching with Hope. um, it's called Surviving Teaching Burnout. I had to frame it as a problem for the publishers, but to actually support teachers in executing their will and their way forward in their work, it doesn't get much better than that for
Mm,
me.
beautiful. How does that make you feel? How does it feel when you're doing that? What does it feel like? Can you describe that to the audience?
I feel a little teary right now
Mm,
just
beautiful.
because I feel so strongly about it. I don't know. I live, Broderick, for those moments when you and I have done this together, when we're holding space and people are able to share from their hearts about their struggle in the work and their struggle with their own sense of humanity and all the good things that we study at Greater Good Science Center, compassion and empathy, and what does it mean to be compassionate and empathic, and what does it mean to have intellectual humility and be okay with the fact that we make mistakes every day, and how does that affect our kids, and how can we model that for them, and all of these things um, make me feel a, um, a heartfulness right now. Like I feel it in my chest
Mm-hmm.
and in my throat too a little bit. Like if we can support teachers feeling seen and heard. I think because as a child I didn't feel very seen and heard. To me,
Mm-hmm.
that's like the most beautiful work I can do is nurture spaces with other humans where
Mm-hmm.
we can share that with one another and we can feel seen and we can feel heard together.
Mm-hmm. Love it, Amy. So beautiful. So creating a loving space. That's my interpretation of it.
Yeah, I mean
Uh,
that's all those are for me the characteristics of love, right? We all just
mm-hmm.
want to belong to something. We want to be seen. We want to be valued for our
Mm-hmm.
perspectives and what we bring to our
Mm-hmm.
work and to our lives. And
Yeah, that's beautiful, Amy. And I use this word loving space, and I think all those things that you're mentioning, and I don't have any shame, and you know me in this, and no matter if I'm in a professional setting or not, it doesn't matter. What I'm doing is love. That's what it is. That's what it's about. Creating a loving space for
Mhm.
people. And you and I have experienced this with folks, online, just seeing
Oh
how
yeah.
people feel that sense of love, that sense of connection and open heartedness and all these various qualities that we were speaking of, how all of that, being curious facilitates a loving space.
Hmm.
Being authentic that you brought up earlier, being an authentic person can facilitate this type of space. When we're authentic and open hearted in a space, it creates a loving space, creates a space where we're deeply in resonance with each other and deeply connected. Such a beautiful thing. It's beautiful work that you're doing, important work that you're doing. Through that love for working with these educators, extending that love to them, creating that loving space for them, that's going to help them create a loving space for those young folks that they're working with because they feel like they're valued and they're cared for in some capacity. That's going to translate into the classroom with their kids. And then we can ultimately, I think what you're doing is huge because that has what's the word? How do I say this? That has downstream effects. Is that what I'm
Mm.
saying? That it
Ripple effect or a downstream
that a
impact.
ripple effect, the
Yeah.
downstream effect, where that's going to be translated to these children. That's going to become adults.
Yeah. Kids
How?
get it. Kids can see
Yeah.
through us, especially the older ones. If we're not
Mm-hmm.
really if we're struggling to make it through the day and if we're connected as much as we can be to presence, not to put additional pressure on teachers. We just do our best every day, but if we can be with each other and be vulnerable and be open and compassionate and lean into that, then our kids are going to see that. It's just going to flow out of us. So,
The love for teaching, being present with those kids, and yeah, it's not so much pressure on educators. It's like Tap into your love of teaching, all the standardizations and all of the stuff
Mhm.
like that, and the red tape and administrative stuff that kind of holds teachers back, or just not being valued, not getting paid enough, overworked too much, all of those different things. How do we mitigate that as a society and a culture so we can facilitate love in the classroom? And I'm an advocate. I'm like, no, let's call it for what it is. We're talking about love here. And what's wrong with facilitating a loving society? I really don't understand. Oh, we can't talk about that professionally. What the hell is wrong with you then? And if you can't talk about that like seriously, I'm like,
Agree.
that is strange that we're not compelled to call it for what it is. Like, no, as an educator, my primary interest is, how do I facilitate love in this person? How do I help this person evolve, develop their capacity to be the best version of themselves in a society of other human beings, which requires a certain level of love, a capacity for love? How do I
Yeah.
help facilitate that in a human being through education? If that's not what we're doing, what the hell are we doing then?
Totally
Um,
agree. And let me tell you this, I'm so excited. I'm not directly involved with this project, but Greater Good Science Center, there we literally are doing a 2-year grant on love.
awesome.
So, and they're bringing in my colleagues are bringing in podcasters and journalists who are going to do projects focused on different aspects of love, and researchers who research love and put them together and have them kind of dance together and share ideas and support each other in their endeavors. So we're actually going
Awesome.
to do some work with love this year as academics. So
Uh, Thank the goodness,
yeah.
because that's needed. And I'm glad here at the end here you got all the excitement. And one of the final things that you mentioned earlier was play. I wanted to make sure
Yeah.
we come back to that, and just seeing how
Oh,
your the joy and the playfulness that
yeah.
you express when you're sharing this project that you're doing. Can before we go here, can you say something about play and a little
Oh
bit more about
man.
that?
There's a book, I'm looking over to my bookshelf. There's a book called, I think it's called The Power of Fun by Catherine Price that I read last year. I'm also just, because of this sort of inner work, I'm connecting with my younger self a lot more, and how responsible she was and what a good girl she was. And I am there's a soul spark in me, Broderick, that is very playful, and I'm trying to lean into it as I get older. I bought myself some roller skates recently. I'm gonna try those out. Took a swing dancing class. um, there's nothing better than laughing with your people that you love too,
Hmm.
having moments where you can share some silliness. I love, yeah, this is what brings me joy and makes me feel lighter and more alive, is when I can lean into play. And I'm just kind of tiptoeing toward that, honestly, because I'm a pretty academic, serious woman a lot of the time. But play is very appealing to me, and creativity along with play. Like, I'm such a comfortable academic that I want to be more of an artist, and I want to like start to watercolor and just, I don't know, just try different things that I haven't really tried before, and not care whether they look good, or just enjoy the process of painting or playing pickleball or swing dancing or whatever it is.
Hmm. Yeah.
We got to lean into joy and delight. I love Ross Gay, who talks a lot about
Mm,
both, and
mm.
find his work inspiring. And joy as resistance in a time when we are struggling.
Right. Exactly. Even when how do we play with the struggles of life? How do we play with life? In life, there's suffering, there's challenges, there's moments of discomfort. But how can we live life playfully?
Yes.
And that this exploration of possibilities, this curiosity into the uncertainty of life, and like, hey, I can be a double, was it Debbie Downer? Is that the word?
Yeah.
I can be a Debbie Downer about everything,
Yeah.
or I can just find a little play with it, I'm not going to live my whole life just walking around sad and angry because I live in a society of fool people, of not everybody fools, but a lot of foolishness going on.
No, I hear you.
That's actually celebrated, which is strange, and rewarded in a society. And for me, that's a dark world. I feel like I live in a pretty dark place where maladaptive or you know morally reprehensible behavior is rewarded and celebrated.
Yes, it is.
And that's a dark world, but yet I find ways to smile. I find ways to find joy, to play. I'm not gonna let this. There's this old saying of black folks who say in the country, you can't let nobody take your joy, let nobody steal your joy. And I'm like, that's exactly right.
I love
Like, can't let anybody steal your joy. You got to do the best you can to have fun and play in life as well. The good life, yes, working, being still and being present and all these things that we mentioned, love and resonance, authenticity, and all of that. You can still do that in the field of play.
And you
Um,
know what? I think we're coming back to the beginning again is play is really about flow. It's about being
right?
in the moment and losing sight of yourself and being present to that activity or that laugh or that beautiful moment, right? It's losing yourself, losing your sense of um cognating and just
Mm-hmm.
being.
That's
So, I
right.
mean, play is presence.
That's it. And you can play. You saw me when we do facilitate. I feel like I'm playing. If when I'm in that playful mode when I'm facilitating, that's the
Mhm.
best. I'm gonna be do the best facilitating
Yes.
because I'm really present and really engaged, and and I'm crack a silly joke, whatever it may be. The environment relaxes when we're in that playful mode, and that's something that we can cultivate. Life is in some of the philosophical traditions from India talk about divine play, and that's it. How can we live in the world, express our divine nature through play? That's a work in progress, I think, for me at least. But that's the goal: is to be playful, to live life from a playful perspective. That doesn't mean it's always going to be enjoyable in
Mhm.
that play. It's like when you roller skate. I guarantee when you start roller skating, it's fun, but they're gonna be like, man, my thighs are tired.
The
I'm like,
blisters.
I got blisters. So there's moments in it that's not comfortable. I'm gonna be sore afterwards. But I guarantee you, like, oh, I'm gonna go do that again. That was so much fun.
Mhm.
That's life. Life is that way, and we can live a beautiful life. We can live a good life that's playful, and yet there are painful moments throughout it,
Mm.
and that's all we got. We can only do the best we can with the life that we have as human beings. So, Amy, this has been awesome.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
It's
You
such
brought
a pleasure.
Yeah, you such a pleasure. You brought up so many things. Creativity, you slipped in there. There are all of these pieces of the puzzle, and I'm sure there's various other adjectives and nouns that we could have used to describe or talk about the good life. I just hope, audience, that you are inspired to think about these things and to have conversations with other folks about this subject, because through exploration, I think, of this question, these questions that I pose here on this podcast, I really do feel like we can make the world a more beautiful place because we open ourselves to the possibilities and we actually give some attention to the various ideas associated with it. And I do believe that if we really seriously engage these questions, it can facilitate a more beautiful world. And I've mentioned that in a previous podcast that I've done, why I think so. But I just think, and based on what you're saying and the thoughts, the ideas that you brought to this conversation today, I know I was reminded of how important all of those different facets are to the puzzle. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. What a privilege to talk about these things.
Hmm.
I'm glad
Yeah.
I'm glad you have your podcast. I'm glad that you're leaning into what the good life looks like. I think we need this. We need these moments with one another.
Yes, that is that too. Yes, having a conversation to gain some, cognitive, intellectual insight, sure, but it's the moment in and of itself of connecting, being in loving space with another human being. It's just awesome.
Mhm.
Any final words before we sign off that you'd like to lead the audience with?
Oh, wow. Um, no, just gratitude, which is another thing I lean into every day. Broderick, just gratitude for you, for the presence that you bring, for the moment that we have, for the people who are listening right now. Just appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you. See, look at she slipped in another one right here at the end. I love it. The whole podcast about gratitude, but
Yeah.
we have to have you back at some point when as this podcast continues to take off, and I would love to have folks come back and we can kind of lean into a little bit more of the work that you're doing and talk about social emotional learning and whatever. It can be gratitude. I mean, there's so many. You're Amy is
Mm.
quite gifted and talented here,
Well,
folks.
I've
I hope you
studied a
realize.
lot of keys to well-being. I will just say, if I can slip this in at the end,
Yeah.
I was just talking about, I just did a workshop for teachers and we talked about gratitude. I just love the fact that even though there are so many difficult things going on in our world right now that are completely out of our control, that gratitude itself, which is an affirmation of goodness
Mm-hmm.
and an affirmation of an appreciation of all the things that go on in the world that are also out of our control that we have nothing to do with, but that are beautiful. So
Mm-hmm.
why not tip the scales, and why not focus our energy there too, right? It doesn't have to be superficial or trite. Let's just appreciate the gifts that come to us each day. Like, I was literally on my walk the other day, and this may sound cheesy, but man, I was thinking about, I was walking along and I saw like red, the color red in flowers, and I said to myself, the gift of red, you know? And then like a cute little dog, the gift of this precious little dog. And I just kept gifting myself on my walk with all the beautiful things. They're right there. They're right there outside
Mm-hmm.
of me. I don't control them, and they're there. So there's goodness out of our control too. So
Oh, love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Amy, for
yeah,
your
thanks.
presence.
You too.
Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I hope this conversation has inspired you to reflect on your own views of the good life. If you enjoyed the show and want to hear more inspiring and thought provoking conversations, please follow, write a review, and rate us on your favorite podcast app. If you are tuning in on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support is very much appreciated.